As you know, I don't do a lot of guest interviews on this podcast, but when I do, I tend to bring in people that I know, respect, and trust. So this week I want to bring to you a local entrepreneur named Paul LePage, who runs a company called Foundation BTS. They do managed services and threat management for IT departments, but I think what's most important is learning how Paul himself used an agile approach to building his business. And Paul tells such a great story about learning from failure and evolving from a great technical person to a great business leader. So I think you'll really enjoy this interview with Paul LePage. That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Paul LePage, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm glad to see you, and I'm introducing you to my friends, my listeners, for a very specific reason. Because even though you're not a Scrum Master, an Agile Coach, what you've done and what you've built here not only is agile in nature because you've grown it from a seed of an idea to a profitable business with employees serving the local community, but I'm looking at your wall here and there's newspaper clippings and there's awards from the Chamber of Commerce, and you're fairly well known in the community. In fact, you have time and means to be charitable, which is how we met. Mm-hmm. And I really love my conversations with you because we talk about so many things in common without knowing it. And what I want this audience to learn is that if you have an idea, a passion, something that you want to contribute or give, that maybe the best way to contribute it in these changing times is not to keep working for a bank or keep working for an insurance company with the limited frame of a software development agility coach, but you could use the skills you already have to build something like what you've built. So I'm introducing Paul LePage from Foundation BTS here in my hometown of Newmarket, Ontario. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Chris. I'm really grateful to be here.
Would you tell us first and foremost what your business does? What does Foundation BTS fundamentally do?
So we're an outsourced IT service company, and we're based here in Newmarket, but we have employees from all over the country. And the idea is we provide help desk services, systems administration services, cloud management services, and cyber protection to make sure that our clients are able to focus on their business, align their technology with their business needs, and basically get more done.
Sounds fundamental, something that every business could use. Everyone's heard of a managed services kind of an operation before, but there's so much more going on under the hood. I want to get there, but before we do, tell me about your background. How did you come up and get to the point where you left maybe a corporate job to where you are today?
Okay. Well, I'll start off on how I ended up leaving the corporate world and ended up working with Foundation BTS or owning Foundation BTS. And so I used to work as an IT manager for a heavy civil construction company. And so what they did is they operated around Canada. They actually built the subway line for the Vancouver Olympics. And so it was a really exciting place to work. They were sending me all over the country to do IT things. And I basically provided the IT management for about 250 people. And so when I was working there, they made a pivot and they went from heavy, construction to construction management. And so what ended up happening is they downsized significantly, and I found myself not as challenged. I didn't find the role as exciting as I used to. And so I was looking for something that would re-engage me. And I had some history as a programmer before. I'll get into that maybe later. But I went to my boss and I said, I want a pay cut. And so he's like, well, I'm listening. So I told him about my idea for Foundation BTS, that I would work for him for only 20 hours a week. I would go and seek out other clients. I would build staff. I would introduce new technology and new tools that would help me serve him and other businesses better for less and less money with better and better results. And he stopped me midway through that spiel that I just told you, and he said, just stop. You had me at pay cut. And so that's where I am.
Wow.
And so Foundation BTS was born.
So here's the interesting thing about your story.
Yeah.
Is that so many people in Agile talk about failure and risk because you can't iterate and develop things in innovative ways if you're not willing to try something you're not 100% sure will work.
Right.
But some people are so afraid that if I do something that doesn't work, it's going to sink the business.
Yeah.
That ends up being not true. And one of the things we want to encourage Agilists, but also the people that they serve to do, meaning your stakeholders, your customers, is to describe and navigate failure and risk in such a way that it doesn't sink the boat, but it surfaces important critical learnings early. What are some of the failures? Do you have any stories about failure and or risk that would highlight that point as you were growing and building this business?
So I can give you one story about failure. And this is my first day in an IT job. And I was working for a manufacturer. They made gift cards. And they were down in Consumers Road in Toronto. And some of you might be able to guess what the company was. And so they had a mainframe room in the center of their building that was supposed to be bomb-proof. And so I was working in there. I was in the midnight shift. I was learning how to run jobs that would do their accounting processes and stuff like that. And it's 3 a.m. and I need the bathroom. And so I go and I try to open the doors. They're magnetically sealed. I don't know how to get out. So I turn to the computer operator and I yell over to him, "Hey, how do I get out?" He goes, "Press the red button." So I saw one red button on the right-hand side of the door. I remember it vividly, and I press it, and suddenly the lights go black. It's dark. And then all the servers and its mainframes, they're gigantic, and you hear, and they're humming along, and they go, "Boo."
Like that sound in Star Wars, just before they launched the death ray at the planet there or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes down to dead silence. And so a couple seconds go by and the computer operator guy goes, "Not that red button." And so there we were. I had basically shut down the entire system. And fortunately, they had a run book that was about 6 to 8 inches thick. The guy cracks it open. And by the way, I didn't have to use the bathroom anymore after that.
I bet.
And he opens the book and he flips to a certain page and he starts through this process of bringing everything back online. He tells me to pop out the red button before the halon gas comes on, and we get to work. And so I'm running around doing his bidding until the end of my shift. And he says, "Listen, there's nothing more you can do here. You can go home." So I'm driving home the whole way. I'm thinking this is probably my first and my last day at this job. And I went back that night basically to pick up my pay slip, my pink slip.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was greeted by the IT manager and the president of the company. And they came and they said, "First of all, Paul, we're surprised you came back." I'm like, "Well, so am I, actually." But they said, "We want to thank you for coming back. And we want to let you know that none of this was your fault. And we want to walk you through some of the changes that we made." So the first thing is the emergency shutdown button, which is the one you pressed, unfortunately. It didn't have a label on it and it didn't have a cover on it. We've covered it and we put a label on it, and now you can't press that button by mistake.
Right.
The second thing is on the left side of the door, which is the one that releases the magnetically sealed door. We took the coat hook off the wall, and so people can't hang their coats covering up that button, and we also labeled that door release. Right. And so long story short, there's 3 things that really hit me about that first day on that job. One is that disasters, and by the way, that incident apparently cost $150,000 in damages to the systems. Some of the servers didn't come back on.
Sure.
But the fact that the run book existed is something that was like, people invested incredible amounts of time in making sure that just this scenario was planned for. And that made a real impression on me that's followed my entire career. And then the second thing is communication and processes, and making sure that things are labeled has had a major impact on my career. And so there's a few more things I picked up there, but that whole, and working through pressure is something that, I find that I'm uniquely qualified to do. So
Ed, it's so illustrative. And by the way, for those of you out there who are looking to tell stories to your stakeholders to convince them that risk is not only an inevitable part of doing business,
Yeah.
it's necessary. It is the fastest way to learn because A, you will never make that mistake again.
Right.
That. And they never would have known that that was an error waiting to happen until they met you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One different use case that they weren't expecting is the one that they need to address first, because as you said, to have that happen week in and week out, every time a new person joins the staff, it's like, how do we get out of here? Press the
Yeah.
red button. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's
To have that happen every
terrible.
week at $150,000 a crack would have been catastrophic.
That's right.
But a very high value problem to solve. And even though this is not a story about software development per se, it is a great way to illustrate the importance and the value of learning through mistakes and failure. So feel free to share this story
Yeah.
when you're trying to convince your shareholders that when I say risk is essential, when I say failure is the best teacher,
Yep.
this is an example. That's a great story, Paul. Now, another thing that Agilists lean heavily on is adapting their business based on changing market forces.
Right.
What the customer wants today may be completely different than what they want tomorrow. And
That's true.
the best position to be in is one where we can respond to those changes in a fluid, rapid, and natural way that delights the customer, as we say in the Agile universe. And in your business, you were telling me a story one time about how 9/11 shaped your decision to change what you did. But modern day remote work definitely influences how you work and what you do and how you do it. And so do forces like AI.
Mm.
How have you and your team been adapting to those forces?
So AI is affecting everything most of us do today. And as a matter of fact, I saw a LinkedIn post the other day of a lady who her business seems to be failing right now because she's found that a lot of people, she's in content writing and graphics design, and a lot of the things that she do, people are relying on AI to do that now. And so she's feeling that she's losing contracts. And so when it comes to AI, we are in a period of disruption. And so everybody's job is going to change to some degree. And so in our business, we're seeing it being delivered into the tools that we use to serve our customers. So for example, in just recent weeks, we implemented a chat service. So when people, they don't have to email us or call us anymore, they can use the chat, and the chat is it's powered by AI, and it greets the employee, and they will say, this is the type of problem that I'm having. And it's able to send the request to the right professional. And the result of that is we're able to respond and complete service 3 times faster than we were even a few months ago. And so that's really boosted our performance. Another thing that it's doing for us is inside of the tools that we use, it is able to automate the steps that we have programmed it to do a lot more faster. So for example, if a new employee is coming to an organization, it'll say, it sounds like Donna from company X has requested this. And would you like me to order the Microsoft 365 license? Would you like me to order the computer? Would you like me to set up the group policies for them? And then you say, the technician who still has control over it says, yes, 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 and yes, I want to do that. But I don't want to do this step because they're not going to need it in this case. And so it's made our process again faster there. It is impacting everything we do. But the one thing I will say is I feel that IT and cybersecurity services are going to continue to be necessary, primarily because we consider our competitors are the cybercrime community. We'll call them a community.
Sure.
And so cybercrime is leveraging AI, and we need to leverage AI to combat that. And so that's the biggest area where we're seeing that companies are depending on us to make sure that they're secure and safe.
Right. Right. So you find yourself in a way in an aspect of business you had no idea you were ever going to be in, right? Things changed and flexed for you.
Yeah.
And you just responded according to those market forces. Let me ask you this. If someone's listening to this right now and saying, that's great, but I'm a Scrum Master, I'm an Agile Coach, I couldn't start my own business.
Right.
What advice would you give to somebody who doesn't think that they can or should build their own empire?
I think that anybody with passion to be able to, help people or deliver something that everybody in their position, I think, has an opportunity to see something that is unique that they're better at than everybody else. And so if you believe that you can take that idea and deliver it to the masses or a niche of the masses, then you'll be able to do it. But if you don't believe you can, then you won't. It really does come down to belief in yourself, belief in the thing that you have to offer, and the belief that people want it is really what it comes down to. So I believe that anybody could start a business today, and it does come down to belief. You don't have to be an introvert or an extrovert. You just need to believe in what you're doing.
Very good. That's an excellent point. And let me unpack something you mentioned there, because I was speaking to a client of mine who's a student in the Forge Genesis, where we talk about this empire building or starting your own business. And he loved the saying that I have, which is, I may not be for everybody, but I'm perfect for somebody. There's
Yeah.
8 billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
Somebody needs exactly what you serve. So if what you serve is learning how to sing the national anthem whilst on roller skates, you might say, I have no use for that. But somebody out there
Yeah.
who needs it will. And for them, you're perfect.
Yeah.
And they'll pay any price to get the specificity and the expertise
That's right.
that only you have. You were talk about adapting and responding to failure. This is our second pass at this interview, because first time, good old me, with all my preaching, forgot to arm your microphone. So we have this one recording of mostly me. And so we're doing it for the second time. And the first time we did it, you mentioned something about the core skills that you really need. If you had to say one thing to get good at and focus on at the beginning, is not trying to figure out, as you're sitting there staring at 2 red buttons on the wall, one of them shuts off all the servers, the other one gets you out to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you cover up one of them, not sitting there and thinking, well, what doofus wouldn't understand that these 2 red buttons have very different critical functions. You can't think of all of that stuff in advance, but there are some things you should think about in advance. And one of them was, who is your ideal customer?
Right.
Tell us about that skill, and really quickly, how you learned it and why you think it's the number one skill that anyone setting them out to build their own thing, so that they can get out there and make impact using the skills and passion that they've already invested in. Why is that the most important thing?
So using ourselves as an example of failure, we found that when you're serving the right audience, then you can, it's a recipe for success. And so the way I described it when we were first going into it last time was without a ideal client target or an ideal client profile, what you end up with is you're trying to broadcast your message to a great deal of the wrong people. And so I'll give you an example. In the early days, we were looking for chiropractors, and we would sometimes take people that were residential, like people that lived in, just at home. And what we found is that neither one of them believed that they needed our service at any price. And so we sell some of our backup solutions today for example, for $1,500 to $2,500 a month just for the backup product. But when I was talking to chiropractors, I would have a really hard, and no slam on chiropractors, mine is great, by the way, I highly recommend them. They would say, well, $15 a month for a backup is too much money. And so right away, I recognized that this was not an ideal client profile for me. Or as an example, talking with residential customers, they would want to talk to my staff, some of them whom I'm paying a very handsome salary to, and they would want to, ask questions and use their time, and time is a commodity in our business. But then at the end of the time, they would go, well, I don't want to pay for that. I was just asking you questions.
Right.
And so long story short, and again, by using the negative side, we quickly recognized who our ideal client profile was not. Right. And so now we focus very clearly on a certain demographic, a certain market, and it's getting a lot better results because our message is directly tuned to them.
Right. When you talk about these things, you're no longer talking about managed services. You're talking about the fundamental skills required to lead and grow a business. And so it seems like you've bumped into a lot of thinking and philosophy around leadership. As you had to evolve from a practitioner, from a technologist to a boss manager slash leader, as you described it,
Yeah.
there's almost like a progression there. And I want you to talk about that. How did you get interested in the topic of leadership, and how has that shaped your business? But also, is that ending up being valuable to your clients? Because it seems like you get to talk to your clients
Yeah.
about leadership. So it's
Yeah.
almost become this meta thing where in the progress, or in the process rather, of building the business, you've learned about the foundational aspects of leadership, and now you can teach that back to the people that you serve and add even more value. That's interesting.
It has been an interesting evolution. So, especially recently, we've had a lot of growth. I've had a lot of growth as a business leader. And I will say, when I started this business back in 2011, I was a great IT guy and I could solve most problems. And long story short, just like a great one-man show IT guy. And, we go up and compete against those type of people all the time these days. And what I've found is that in my evolution, I did become like, I went from a one-man show to a boss or a manager of a small team, and bumped up against a lot of the problems with managing people, especially when I was doing it without a framework for success, that I've managed to grow through hard learning. And I'll apologize to those people that worked for me in the early days, because long story short, I did it wrong and I probably did them a disservice. But where we are today is we have a common vision for the company, which is very clearly articulated. People know where they're accountable and what their responsibilities are. We don't need to micromanage anybody because everybody's all on the same page.
It's
And
great.
that comes through practice. It comes through having people with a shared vision. It comes through hiring the right people to also lead. And it's been a big transition. And I don't know if I actually successfully answered your question.
Well, I think you did, but let me put a nice bow on it by saying, if people out there are wondering, is this for me, or do I just kind of want to keep collecting the safe paycheck, and no judgment on that. If you feel at home
Mhm.
working in a large organization, serving as part of a big team, then there's that, to me, that's no different. It's neither right nor wrong. It's just a question whether it's right for you. But for those people who listen to this show, I'm willing to bet, and almost everyone I've ever met in all of the Forge programs that I've trained, there's always 30% that are like, I could go bigger.
Yeah.
I could do something just for me. I could build something completely new.
Yeah.
Those visionaries, those innovators like yourself are probably sitting on the fence.
Right.
We talked about, what if they don't feel like this is for me, or I can do it? If you had to say, what one or two qualities as a leader or as a human being are instrumental to your success? Things that people could focus on and really build on. What are the skills that are most important to get, develop, or harvest somehow?
Well, I think you don't want to be afraid to fail, first of all. And you also want to, for me, it is about the people. And so there's a lot of room here for everybody on my team to also. I made mistakes in the early days. My team is available to make mistakes in a lot of areas, not with people's backups and stuff like that. Like, there's processes and stuff, but we want people to learn, and we want people to have the opportunity to know that it's okay to come up with an idea and it's not a bad idea. They want to try something, it didn't work, type of thing. It's really made a big difference. And then I guess the other thing, from maybe going in a different direction from the people, it's about the product versus the message. And so our product is our service largely. And our message is something that we didn't actually broadcast in the early days. The mistake I made was that we allowed the company to grow through referrals. And we did grow, and we had some steady growth for a while. but it plateaued because we were aiming at a larger demographic, right? Which was more our ideal client. We identified who that was based on who our existing clients are that were most successful. But we weren't going after more of those. And if you look at Michael Berger from the E-Myth, his story is you can make the best apple pie in the world, but the guy down the street who has a mediocre apple pie is going to outdo you because he has a better marketing message. He's out there selling it. That's the lesson Foundation BTS needed to make. And so finally we're doing that. And that's something that anybody that starts with a product and a message and they're out there pushing what they're offering, they're going to do better than we did in the beginning.
Right. Because they learn that fundamental skill of talking to the right people
Yeah.
about what you do in a way that resonates with them.
That's
because
right.
as you said, it's not the quality of the pie necessarily. Although they're in town, by the way, if you don't know Newmarket, Ontario's best butter tarts. Go figure.
Yeah.
Right? Little business called the Maid's Cottage. They make
Yeah.
great butter tarts, and they're known for winning all these prizes all across Ontario.
Yeah.
So they call themselves Ontario's best butter tart. And man, they can back it up.
Yeah.
However, before they got all those awards and accolades, there had to be a call to come and just check out the restaurant and see for yourself if it's for you. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. Old style, home cooking, service with a smile, old wood grain tables, very country kitchen feel to it.
Yeah.
And if that resonated with you, you are for us and we are for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are thinking about starting their own business hesitate because they think sales and marketing is dirty or I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, if you've ever had to sell an idea, if you've ever had to motivate a team to row in the same direction, if you've ever had to get people up and amped and let's do this. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's do it. If you've ever had to convince a client, let's try this, or to bring an idea to them, not 100% sure if it will work or not 100% sure if it's the best idea. If you've ever seen your way through that, you can sell. You can market because you can transmit an idea in such a way that it causes an action, a very specific action.
Right.
And you can't let failure, like marketing is something you learn by trial and error.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
In the same way that next time I use this template for recording, I will not forget to arm your microphone. But when I was 18 years old, I played in a lot of rock bands. I got exposure to some big crowds because of where I lived and where I went to school and stuff. And I remember doing a show one time and we had a singer and we knew he wasn't good. But when he got in front of people, he was even worse. And at the end of the show, I put my guitar down and ran to the nearest pillar and hid behind it and wouldn't come out until everyone had gone home. I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
I played okay. He did not.
Right.
And if those people had never gone home, I never would have come out. I'd still be there.
Yeah.
If I had done that today, where we make a mistake and we screw up the recording and I said, okay, screw it.
Yeah.
I'm useless. I'm so embarrassed. I'm never going to record a podcast again.
Right.
I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
So your ability to say, I'm not good at it, but if it's the most important thing and guys who have done it and made a success out of it, like Paul LePage from Foundation BTS, then I could do it. Right. I could do it if it means the cost of doing it is being scared and risking embarrassment, but the payoff is that I'll learn a fundamental skill that my competitors don't have.
Yeah.
Even with their better pie.
Yeah.
I will outsell them, I'll outmaneuver them, and so on. Man, that is really great advice, Paul.
Thanks.
One last question. What do you think might be next for you?
So for me personally, I've invested a lot of time into making this business a success. And we're really, really tracking with that right now. Like the company is doing better than we ever have before. The team is amazing. Our services are fantastic. Our clients are raving about us, which is, a good feeling. And so for me, it does come down to, we want to scale the organization. And also I want to balance that with, transitioning myself from being an IT manager to a business leader and working and using, again, the Michael Berger framework. I don't know if it's Berger or Berger, actually. And and working on the business instead of in the business, but also emphasizing a bit more work-life balance, right?
Right.
So before this interview, I was talking to you about traveling out to Napanee for a weekend, right? I left a little bit early on Friday, and that's something that 7 years ago I wasn't doing any of that, right? So we want to see ourselves become a national company where we're working in every province, and so we want to have a salesperson and technical person in each major city so that we can deliver largely the remote services from our virtual office, which is also located across Canada.
Right.
And actually, I don't know if I told you this, we're dedicated to being like a Canadian-only company. So our staff all work and live in Canada. But we also have workcations, which is kind of fun. And so we had people working from Hungary last year and stuff like that. And that's kind of fun. And it's something I hadn't even considered before. So that's where I see myself in 10 years. And then in terms of personal life, we're going to do more charity stuff like the 100 Men Who Give a Damn. I'm going to play hockey until my knees don't work anymore.
Awesome.
And, just continue to do fun things with family and friends.
So you get to have fun,
Yeah,
live a life that you want, build a life of your own design, and you build a business exactly the way that you want to build, as opposed to trying to please everybody.
Yeah. We want to please a certain demographic.
Exactly.
And we want to do that exceptionally well.
Wow. Paul, so first of all, thank you for making time to do this interview, because I think your insights give people with an Agile bent maybe a wider purview, that Agile doesn't just mean that software development, trying to get things finished faster. It's not about that. Agility is what the word agility means, being able to bend and flex with the environment, learning from failure, not trying to know everything before you put your foot out there. If you had to get that red button problem right before you opened your doors, there's a million red button problems in every business, and you can't know them until you screw them up good and proper.
Yeah.
That's when you'll learn, that's when you'll improve, and that's when you'll scale up. And I think that's an important lesson for people out there to hear, because our industry is changing, Paul.
Yeah.
The stuff that we do is no longer considered is no longer considered unique or necessarily specialized.
Yeah.
It's table stakes.
That's right.
And you're kind of proving that.
Actually, can I comment on that thing about the failure? Because failure sometimes can have like reputational impact, or it can have a financial impact. And so as an example, I want to talk about one with a financial impact, but it doesn't mean that it was wrong.
That's right. Yep.
So we invested in we're in our 4th iteration of our service management software, as an example. And so through time, we found, well, this is better for us. And so we made the move. Does that mean that the one that we picked before that was wrong? Like that was the wrong choice? At the time, no, it wasn't, right? And another example is we invested in a mail security program that we found that after we got it implemented and fully running, it really just wasn't doing it the way we wanted it to do it. So long story short, we were locked into a contract for a year on that. I had to continue paying the bill, but we pulled that out of our customer base because it was going to affect our customer satisfaction levels.
Right.
So making the wrong choice is something that sometimes as a business owner, you just have to live with and march on and hopefully learn something from it. But these kind of things will happen again and again.
Of course.
The other example I can give is as the company got bigger, some of the processes that we had in place stopped working. And Michael Dell wrote a book based on how Dell kept breaking down every time he hit this new glass ceiling.
Yep.
And he was just like, oh, this is going to happen. This system that we built is this amazing today. When we're this big of a company, we know it's not going to work anymore. And so that's something that I try to keep in mind is what we built for today isn't going to work in 2 years.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So failure, once again, essential part of the process. It's how you build and grow. There's a saying, muscle doesn't grow until you tear it.
Yeah.
So you expect things to break down. Well, one more time, Paul, thank you so much for making time today.
No problem.
And people can find you at foundationbts.com.
That's right.
And they find your email is paul at
Paul.LePage.
Paul LePage, thank you. And folks, if you're out there listening to this and you think you could use or know someone who could use some managed services or would like to get to know Paul and his offerings, would you do me a favor and please check him out? You know my show. I don't bring on people because they're famous or because they're on every other podcast. I bring on people I like because they inspire me, they motivate me, and they do great work. I'm so impressed with what you built here, Paul.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make a business myself that is the same size as yours and has the reach as yours. So please, if you're thinking about managed services for your organization, would you give Paul a try? Just take a look, have a conversation with him and see if he's a fit for you. Help this business prosper and grow and continue to do the great work that he does, from his charities to the people that he employs in our local community. Thank you, Paul, for being such a vibrant part of the Newmarket business landscape.
I'm really grateful I could do this.
Oh, me too.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paul.
All right. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that one. Please send in any questions or comments to me at contact@badassagile.com or any of the contact points in the show notes below. And don't forget to check out Paul at foundationbts.com. Thank you once again. I'll look forward to next time. And until then, stay badass.